also Jeff Toobin, CNN senior legal analyst, and noted defense attorney Mark Garagos as well. Mark, what do you make of the case against this man? How would you try to go about defending?
Well, I think you just have to wait first, and I'm sure Ben's going to wait first and find out what the evidence is. He needs to see what the DNA shows. Yeah, right. Ben is I assume, the lead lawyer here. And he's going to wait and see what they've got before he decides how he's going to approach this. He's not going to jump to any conclusions. This idea that the prosecutor came out and announced that it was not consensual and that it's a serious crime, it seems like they're already in a position where they're doing some pushback. I don't know why. If they have such a strong case, I don't know why they're so defensive. But I would expect that Ben will be circumspect until he sees everything that the prosecutor has before he reveals anything.
The defense, though, Mark, has tried to kind of get out the details that, look, this flight was prearranged, that the notion that he, suddenly booked this flight and, scrammed from the airport is not accurate.
Well, they have to do that because of the bail hearing and what the grounds are for granting the bail, whether he's a flight risk. I mean, the prosecution tried to paint a portrait that this was somebody who was grabbing the first plane to France. They invoked the two words that every French defendant fears most, Roman Polanski, and then argue that this person's never going to come back because he's never going to be able to be extradited. All they've got to do then, and what I assume happened here, is show that it was booked, and it was booked prior to this incident, and that he was the one, as Mr. Taylor was saying just then, that he had called twice. He was the one who alerted them to where he was, that he was at JFK. If this was somebody who was trying to flee, he's certainly not going to call for his cell phone. He would have just got on the flight and he'd be gone and they never would have seen him again. So I think that you do have to push back when you're talking about somebody's liberty. And the idea that it was no bail for a couple of days is ludicrous, because this is not a murder case. This is not a no bail case. This is a case where he should have received bail and did receive bail today.
Jeff, last night in the program around this time, you predicted he would receive bail likely, and that he would resign from the IMF, both of which have happened. But you say you think he got lucky with this bail.
This was a close question. There are judges in that courthouse who definitely would have denied him bail. I mean, start with the fact that he is not an American citizen. Most non-American citizens who are arrested in the United States do not get out on bail, particularly those charged with serious felonies. He's very fortunate that he has the resources to put together a package with home detention. I mean, how many people in the world can afford $200,000 a month for electronic and individual monitoring? So he is very lucky. And also consider how long it's going to be until trial. 2 months, 3 months, maybe even longer. All those months he would have spent in Randall's Island. Instead, he's going to be with his wife, eating the food he wants, seeing the people he wants, in an apartment in Manhattan. It makes a huge difference in his life.
Mark, when you're representing a client like this, I mean, how time-consuming does this become for the client? Is this, I mean, last night Jeff was talking about, look, he needs to dedicate a lot of time focusing on this case moving forward. Is that what you found with clients?
Oh, in this case, given the stakes here, there's no question he's going to spend 24/7 on this case. There's no way that he would have been able to retain his position even if released on bail. So this is something where he's going to have to dedicate his life to getting out of this. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's facing a tantamount to a life sentence here. He needs to clear his name. He needs to defend this case. He needs to meet with his lawyers. He needs to do everything he can possible. This is going to be an all-encompassing, all-consuming case for both him and, frankly, for the lawyers.
What do we know about his visitors to Rikers?
The visitors, it's interesting. The prosecution was arguing he should only be allowed one visitor aside from immediate family, but the defense lawyer said, no, he's got a lot of friends. They want to come visit him. They want to come see him. You know, one interesting thing, Anderson, watching him in court, he seemed much more relaxed. When he saw his wife, he smiled. He later blew her a kiss. He was much more pulled together than he had been when we saw him earlier in the week. He had shaved. He was wearing a blazer. Right. So there does seem to be a little bit of change in the dynamics. You have to keep in mind who this guy is, who he's used to hanging out with. This is a guy who's credited with saving Greece and Portugal and Ireland. So he knows diplomacy, he knows negotiations, and it seemed to me, and Jeff, you can correct me, that he seemed to have a better feel for what was ahead, what was to come, and comfort being surrounded in the lawyers he has.
48 hours have got to be just like being hit with the truck.
Well,
obviously,
it helps to be a public figure. I mean, I remember watching O.J. Simpson in the courtroom. He was a public figure. He had presence. He knew what it was like to be looked at. I think Strauss-Kahn is going to have a similar presence in the courtroom. Now, if the DNA evidence, if the hair and fiber evidence incriminates him, none of that stuff matters. But it certainly helps. And if I can just add one thing. I said Randall's Island. That's soccer fields. It's Rikers Island. That's the prison.
I played on some of those soccer fields as a kid. They can get pretty tough. There's a lot of glass in that. Not much grass left out on Randall's Island.
It's been fixed up.
Oh, has it?
Yes,
I didn't know
very
that.
much so.
Yeah, I was back in the 80s. Mark, do you agree with Jeff that it actually helps to be a public figure in terms of knowing how to present yourself in court?
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt. This is somebody who knows how to carry himself. He's somebody who has been in situations where he knows how to handle himself, and that beats the heck out of somebody who doesn't. And the fact that he has a high-profile job, and by some accounts probably one of the most high-profile jobs in the world, certainly is not going to hurt him. At the same time, the things that do hurt him is that you're going to have prosecutors and judges who are going to, with all of the media attention, try to make sure that he never seems like he's getting a break, so to speak. I don't think that anybody else is going to have the amount of attention that he has paid to their case in New York at this time. So, it's a double-edged sword, if you will.
Well, and certainly for the alleged victim coming forward, this is a woman whose life is now going to be changed. And if she has to confront him in court, that will obviously be incredibly overwhelming.
The trial, if there is a trial, will be incredibly stressful for her. I mean, there's one big decision the defense has to make. They really have only two choices. Is the defense consent, or is the defense, I wasn't there at the time? You can't argue both, right. And that's why they have to just sort of see what the evidence is, talk to their client, and then we'll see how it goes.
Jeff Toobin, thanks very much. Mark Geragos, great to have you on the program. Thank you.